Hey you guys, how's it going? So today I'm going to be drawing Sailor Moon and I'm going to be drawing her in my style. I'm going to be using this 10 colored multicolored pen that I got at the Dollar Tree. I really enjoy this pen. It has the 10 colors including the yellow, the brown and the pink, which is some of the best colors that I like to use, especially because you have more of a palette to work with. I do use the 8 colored one at times, but this one is my favorite one. Now, again, I got it for 125. You don't need expensive supplies to create some art. Now, before I start, I'm not really gonna worry on guidelines. I think you should worry on the fundamentals, especially if you're a beginner. But I am using orange. I consider myself an intermediate artist, so I'm using orange here, and I am still using a couple of guidelines to base my character, just not as accurate as the cartoon character. I always say we're not cameras, so just draw to your heart's content, and if you get the essence of the character, you're doing good. Anyway, I started with orange. I don't know if you noticed that I used circles for the hair. You might be like, why are you doing that? Well, Serena has such a weird, awkward, like hair in the front. Like her bangs are very weird shaped, kind of like half circles. So that is the reason why I put circles. Now, for the eyes, I am leaving a space in between. I did align the eyes like with the size of the ear. I was looking at the reference, and that kind of helped me guide my eyes. Now, again, I left an eye spacing distance in between both eyes just to kind of, give it that anime-ish look. And I try to copy the features of the eyes as accurate as I can, the pupils and the white spots and everything. Now, the neck here does look a little bit thicker. I used a square, and the chin does too. But don't worry about it because you are going to fix it with shadows eventually. Now, just be confident. Keep drawing, keep going, keep using your experiences, to get better. Don't use your judgment, of course, but also get comfortable that every line that you're making is making you better. You're leveling up, you're gaining experience, so long as you're doing it with purpose. Fall in love with the process. Anyway, here you can see that she looks a little bit more complete, but I wasn't very satisfied, with the way she was looking. Now, if that's the case, don't throw your paper away. I'm going to be using another color on top to kind of layer the orange. I'm going to use blue. I try not to use black, right? So I'm going to use a dark blue, and I can also move the features wherever I please. You're going to see right now. The blue is going to help them pop. Now, if I feel that one of the eyes is a little bit too close to the other one or too far, I can always go back in there and mask it with the blue. That's why I told you to use an orange in the bottom, especially because orange works well for skin tones. Just don't press too hard. Now, here you see that I am going to outline everything that I like in blue, everything that I want for the picture to stand out. And just here we go. Let me go ahead and stop talking for a little bit so that you can enjoy the process. All right, so once I am complete with my, you know, overlay of the blue, I start coloring my sketch a little bit more. I am going to start adding my shadows, which is going to be my darkest colors. And in this case, I'm going to use purple. I can use blue, but blue's my darkest color, so I'm going to use the purple. And I'm put it in areas like under the ear, under the chin, around the eyes, under the hair. And you'll see right now how this is going to make my art pop a little bit more. Now, remember I said for you to use orange in the bottom. You have that line right there under the eyes that you might not like. But with the color orange, when you start, hatching, you kind of tend to cover that line. It makes it more attractive. And this is how it's looking, right, so far. I'm very happy with the way the drawing is looking. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to start adding the final details in the eyes and just work on the finer details, that are very small to do, just to kind of bring her out even more so. And now I can start calling her, Sailor Moon. Trust the process, guys, even through the ugly face, because art does have an ugly face, especially when you're trying to fix things and trying to go back and forth. So now that I have all my base colors like ready, I can start go with the hair, and I'm going to start using I'm coloring the red in her little hair clips. And then for her hair, I'm going to use, of course, the yellow, but I'm going to be using a hatching technique that usually I always do. And I tend to follow the same direction, because if you use different directions, your drawing is going to look very unappealing. And you want to avoid that. You want your drawing to look very aesthetic. Here you see that I'm just going through the hair, right? I'm not too worried about adding different hues of color in the hair. I could, and it's going to make it better. But this is just a simple sketch that I wanted to show you guys how I do. The uniform here, it goes blue. I did mess up a little bit in this section right here on the shading C, but I kind of also did it intentionally. Look at that hatching there. You see that bold line? It doesn't look very attractive. This is why I tell you to hatch only in one direction, because if not, it's going to throw off your whole painting. But all in all, I'm very happy with the sketch, especially, at the end when I make it pop out. And you're going to see how, if you know anything on complementary colors, her hair is yellow. So you want to use something that complements yellow. And in this case, pink and purple is going to be it. Now you want to make sure that, since the sky is going to be dark in the background, you want to make a gradient from pink to like purple. And you will see the final result in a bit. Thank you so much for watching. Again, please like, subscribe, share, comment. And if you would like more videos like these, you want a tutorial, you want me to slow it down, let me know. I really appreciate you, and I'm in other socials with the same username. If you can find me, you can find me there. Shoot me a message, I'll message back. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a good one. Enjoy.